Same-sex marriage is legal in the Cayman Islands following a landmark Grand Court decision that came down this morning. Chief Justice Anthony Smellie ruled that the definition of marriage as between a man and a woman was unconstitutional and violated multiple rights. Before a packed courtroom, he ordered lawmakers to amend the law to define marriage as the union between two people as one another's spouses.
It's been 2 years now since Caymanian Chantel Day and partner Vicky Bodden-Bush began litigating for recognition of their marriage by the Cayman Islands government. An initial victory by the couple in Grand Court in March 2019 was met by a government appeal, opposing the court's imposition of same-sex marriage rights. Now, their case awaits scheduling in the UK Privy Council. The couple's story has laid bare divisions in Caymanian society over the concepts of family, love, human rights, and religion.
I affirm this afternoon that marriage was divinely established in Eden and affirmed by our Lord Jesus Christ to be a lifelong union between a man and a woman in loving companionship. Marriage has been the foundation of the family and the foundation of all societies. Then God said, we read in Genesis chapter 1, verses 26 to 28.
Mr. Speaker, as I said, once the floodgates are opened, what will happen in Cayman? How are we going to stop it?
I have commented separately on yesterday's important appeal court judgment on same-sex marriage. It is my belief that government should act with reasonable haste to comply with the court's direction. And as your governor and representative of Her Majesty the Queen, it is my strong wish that despite strong feelings and beliefs on this issue, everyone in this honourable House will choose their words carefully and treat everyone with courtesy, dignity and respect.
With the release of the Domestic Partnership Bill 2020, Cayman's legislature is now tasked with amending one of the territory's most divisive issues, or face the UK imposing a solution for them. On the eve of the Domestic Partnership Bill's release, Chantel Day discussed her family's years-long battle and what legal recognition would mean for them.
How your journey with all of this started, if you can take us back.
Yeah, sure. Well, it's been such a long time now. It's been a long road, but stepping all the way back, I think it was in 2017, actually. Vicky and I had moved abroad in 2014 because we were just having issues and got sort of fed up of the hostile environment here towards same-sex couples. So we just needed a break from it. So we moved abroad and we moved to Dublin, and then we moved to London. So, you know, we were having a good time abroad, but ultimately I wanted to return home. And when we adopted our daughter, I wanted to raise her around the rest of our family and not away from our community. I wanted her to have the, you know, similar upbringing to the one I had. And I thought that Cayman was at that stage where people, for the most part, were very accepting. We always had a warm reception from our friends and colleagues, etc. But it was just whether we thought we could get the legal protections that we deserved under the law. There had obviously been some traction with the fact that expatriates and work permit holders had gained some rights through the Raznovich case, which went through the Immigration Tribunal. So that opened the door for, well, if foreigners living in Cayman can have some recognition, even if it wasn't full recognition, but some limited recognition of their rights as same-sex married couples, then surely the same should be extended to Caymanians. the government really can't stand by a position of not extending those rights if it's granted one section of the community but not to the others. So we thought, now's a good time to open that door and engage in a friendly dialogue. So we wrote a letter to the Premier, set out what the position was, the rights we were entitled to under the European Convention of Human Rights and the various European cases, and what came as a minimum legal obligation which was to bring in a legal framework that provided for an equivalent bundle of rights. Our next step was we gathered a legal team, and they wrote a legal to the governor's office and the Premier and the Attorney General, outlining exactly what our legal case would be and letting them know our next steps. And again, we got no response to that. So then that left us with no choice, obviously, but to finally take action and litigate. I think we've given them ample opportunity. I think at least 3 times in writing, because then came our letter before action, which again we received no response to. So we had no choice at that stage but to enter the regime of the court and or the remit of the court and seek justice there. Which I mean, I think it's been a bag of mixed results, but ultimately it's all been steps in the right direction. And we're still in that sphere now. So on the way to Privy Council. And
earlier you had mentioned that you and Vicky decided to live abroad for a time due to the hostility here. What kind of hostility did you encounter? What made it difficult to stay here at that time?
Well, I think it's because there are obviously a variety of reasons, but ultimately because we weren't in a position where we could have a legally recognized relationship, we didn't have the protections that comes with that relationship with regards to seeking jobs and a variety of other points, insurance, and even just getting Vicky covered under my health insurance, for example, at the time, holding joint bank accounts, etc., etc. So it was just easier for us to move away so that we can enjoy those rights and freedoms. And interestingly, those rights are afforded to you as a same-sex couple, even if you're not married yet in other parts of the world. So we were able to open joint bank accounts in Europe and in the UK, and we were able to adopt together as a couple who've been in a long-lasting relationship without being married or in a civil partnership in the UK. So we wouldn't have been able to do those things here.
I imagine it must have been difficult growing up here and accepting your identity. What was that process like for you? I think it was difficult. I think a lot of Caymanians have gone through the same experience here, where they don't feel accepted by their family, extended family, peer group, etc. Personally, I took a little bit longer and waited until I left and went abroad to university to get comfortable with myself, or to share that with my family when I came back. But I was very lucky in that I have parents who are extremely supportive and accepting from the very get-go. I come from a mixed background. My dad moved here when he was 12, and my mom is from here, was born here, and they've both been extremely supportive. Some extended family members have not been supportive, but I haven't gotten to where I am in life depending on people's support. The most important people to me in terms of family are my parents and my partner and my friends, who are the family you choose. So those family who have been supportive, that's been very welcomed and great. But for those who haven't been supportive, it's not, they were never a part of my journey to begin with, so it's not really affected me that much. What would it mean? How would it
impact your life, your quality of life, if your partnership were legally recognized here?
Oh, well, it would mean that we're no longer treated as second-class citizens in my country. It would mean that we're not treated as outcasts by the government, because that's essentially the way they treat the LGBT community. They'd like to think that we don't exist and that we should leave. That's actually been the words that have been said in Legislative Assembly by many of the members. And it would also mean just simple things that people take for granted. If something happened to me, if I had any health issues, then Vicky would be the person who would be able to make decisions with regards to my health. She would automatically be entitled to my estate without us having to put layers and layers of legal documentation in place. Yeah, there's also the key thing that I don't think a lot of people understand is that she has no rights to be here in Cayman. She's a visitor. My daughter, who is adopted, we have a UK court adoption and then a UK adoption certificate. It's not being recognized here in Cayman. I have no legal nexus as the mother of my own child here, which means she has no right to become Caymanian. The only reason for that is because she has two mothers on her adoption certificate, which is discriminatory. I don't really see this as any different from back in the US decades ago when interracial marriages were not permitted. It's the same thing. It's just history repeating itself in another format here. And the Cayman Islands purports to be, this top financial center, and they purport to be a forward-thinking jurisdiction, but yet they've dragged us as a family through the court system for years now, with very little respect for us throughout the process, and it's been completely unnecessary because the moment that they got into court, they admitted they didn't fight the fact that they were obliged to provide a minimum legal framework. They admitted that in court, that they were required to provide a legal framework. And their position was, but it was for the legislature to do so. Well, what do you do as a Caymanian if you have an entitlement to a legal right under the Constitution or under the laws, but the government refuses to legislate for it? Who holds the government accountable when they won't act? Because that's exactly the position we've been in. The government refuses to act. I think we've been quite. I think we've been very patient in our approach. I think I've been very refrained in the things that I can say. There's a lot more that's going on behind the scenes that I've not shared, and I won't share because it would embarrass the government even more. But we've given them every opportunity to act in the right way. So it'd be interesting to see what they do, because as far as I'm concerned, they've now sat on a declaration from the Court of Appeal for over 6 months. And I understand that we've had a public health crisis, so I understand all of that. But what would have been the case if something had happened to me as a result of the public health crisis, or if something had happened to my partner or my daughter as a result of the public health crisis? It makes it even more important. It should highlight the significance and the importance of the issue. And I think it's concerning that the government is willing to ignore an order from the Court of Appeal, a declaration from the Court of Appeal to act expeditiously, because I don't think in any definition of the word expeditiously extends to over half a year later, with not even so much as a timeline set out by the government letting us know what their intentions are with regards to the declaration. Even if they communicated, and for reasons that we all understand, we're not able to finalize legislation yet, but had told us what their plans were in terms of a timeline to get it in place, then I think that we could be a little bit more comforted. But the radio silence is disappointing, but also not surprising.